Hello fellow scuba divers and welcome to Simply Scuba. So in today's comparison video we're going to be looking at vented fins. So the two real big hitters in these kind of technical advanced vented fin designs are the Apex RK3, which is still relatively new, and the Hollis F1 fin. So basically these two are both hitting the same kind of chords. The F1 has been out a lot longer. The RK3 has been around for a long time, but in a slightly different iteration, which I'll talk about later. But let's compare these two fins. Okay, so first of all, we're looking at the aesthetics and kind of the hardware of the fin. So I'm going to start off with the Hollis F1. So you would be hard charged to go to any inland dive site around the UK and not see a pair of these fins when I started to go sort of scuba diving. So these are a decent sized, big, heavyweight pair of fins. They're made out of a single piece of this kind of monoprene material, so they're tough as nails. One thing that I do note is that they do kind of scuff up, but it kind of gives them that sort of age. I suppose all fins do scuff up, especially when you're in and around sort of rough terrain. But even on the outside, it's got kind of this matte finish to it that does kind of smudge. It's not the end of the world, but it's something worth sort of noticing. So these are a pretty flat pair of fins. You do get some angle, but you've got this massive rail running down the side, which kind of hides it. They're a decent length. They're one of the, they're a little bit shorter than some standard sort of recreational sort of paddle channel style fins, but these are a bulk. They're a big, heavy pair of fins, which is why a lot of dry suit divers kind of move over towards these. They act as a little bit of trim weight to get your legs down, get your feet down. They're a big pair of fins. They got some cool style to them though. When I was sort of teaching in the UK, I used to use a pair of these. They're tough as nails, they do look good, and because they got this big panel, you can shift through the water. The little vent in the front is quite cool. That's got some style to it. On the underside, it kind of mirrors that. And that's helping to improve the sort of functionality. Spring heels as well, very useful, especially in dry suits with twin sets. Trying to bend down and sort of deal with a strap is the last thing you want to be doing, so just pulling that over your heel much quicker. On the underside, not much to look at. But you've got a big old sort of foot pocket inside of that. Get your foot inside there and it just sort of slides straight out at the end of the dive. So overall, I quite like the style. It's kind of futuristic. It's very kind of Batman. You've got a big sort of tough piece of rubber, and they've got that good sort of solid feel to them. Moving on to the RK3. So the RK3 came along from the Aqualung rocket fins. I think they're branded Aqualung, and that's where the RK comes from. RK is sort of the Rocket 3. These are a slightly shorter pair of fins. When you compare them to the Hollis, they're a little bit shorter, not a great deal, but still a little bit shorter. They're still vented, so you've got the vent coming in the front. They're still made out of a single piece of this kind of rubber monoprene material. This one doesn't have any kind of joining in here. You can kind of see on the F1s, we've got these lines in here which suggest that it's either molding sort of two bits together. But with this, it's just a single piece. You've got that single section of the mold running down the center, which is just the two parts of the cast coming apart. A few other things I quite like about these sort of RK3 fins. You've got these little attachment points. So you've got an attachment point right at the tip of the fin and right in the bottom of the foot pocket. So you can clip them together, you can hang them up on a peg. That's particularly useful, especially if you're making a complicated entry trying to get out of the water. If you've got a little carabiner or a decent sized bolt snap, clip them off and you've got both of your hands to work with. So that's a big selling point. They've got a matte finish to them, which I like. They are tough as nails. Again, they're pretty flat in their profile, so they pack down quite easily. Spring heel strap as well, which I definitely like. They don't have an actual thumb loop. So on this one, you have a hole. So a lot of technical divers will consider that as snag hazard. So if they're swimming along, you don't want something catching on that. So what Apex have done is they filled in that hole. You can still grab hold of it and get it over, but it's less of a snag hazard. So that's something worth looking into. Decent sized foot pocket again. And overall, they're a smart pair of fins. This is what I currently use. As far as weight as well, they're a lot lighter than the F1. But as a sort of general overview, I like them both. I do like the almost retro style of the RK3 a little bit more. I'm turning more into a retro diver the more I spend in the water. And these do come in a lot of different colors. You get a gray version of the F1, which is a little bit lighter, and you can get a yellow tipped version. But actually, if you want to be sort of well seen in the water, you can get a completely yellow or orange or even pink version of the RK3s. So now we're going to move on to sort of specs, looking at the kind of technical side of things. Let's take a closer look. Okay, so now we're getting down to the nitty gritty. We're looking at the specifications of the fins. So we're going to be looking at the weight, the materials, and little features that are ever so slightly different. So starting off with the F1 fins. So the F1 fins are really the heavyweights. These start off at about 3.5 kilos for a pair. So they are a heavy pair of fins. If you're a traveling diver, it might be worth steering away from them. But if you're quite happy with a big sort of clunky heavy pair of fins, then perfect. They do have a lighter version in the F1 LT. Those strip it down to a whopping 3.1 kilos. They basically just cut the tip of the fin off, really. I think they use a slightly different material, but you're saving, what, 400 grams? It's a little bit lighter, but not really. Other than that, so one thing that is quite handy is that on the spring heel strap, they are bolted on, so we have proper bolts that are going into here, but you'll notice that you have 2 bolts. So these two, and you have exactly the same on the other side, mean that you can adjust the length and the tension of that spring heel strap. So if you want it a little bit looser, you can move it so that they're both at the kind of longest. Or if you want it a little bit snugger, you can tighten one and then you can tighten the other to make it really tight. So that's a quite good way. Spring heels are always fantastic because they're always applying tension to the back of your heel. So even as your dry suit compresses, they're still holding on, but you can adjust how tight they hold on. So that's quite a nice feature. Other than that, when I was using these in the UK, they're a solid pair of fins. If you want to shift, they're going to get you there. You don't need super bodybuilder legs to use them, but to get the full sort of performance out of them, yeah, you're going to need to use your legs. They're quite good for exercising as well. Sort of put these on your feet, and they act like ankle weights for doing certain exercises. Big, tough pair of fins. And yeah, using in the UK, I can definitely recommend these. They're strong, they're powerful. You never have to worry about sort of bending and breaking them. They were tough as nails. RRP as well, I should note, was £135. So they're at the higher level of sort of fin cost. They're not the top, they're not the most expensive, but yeah, these are a pair of fins that you'll buy once and that's it. They never wear out. They're really tough as nails. Looking at the RK3, so the RK3, so these come in 2 different versions as well. You get the HD version and then you get the standard version. The HD version runs in at 2.8 kilos, so a lot lighter even compared to the 3.5 of the standard version. The standard version of the RK3, the lighter version, runs in at 1.2 kilograms, so very light compared to the Hollis. But if you don't need that kind of trim weight around your feet or your ankles, then perfect. These are pretty much neutrally buoyant in salt water. I tried it myself. They do float in fresh water. So yeah, they're going to float in salt water as well. The Hollis ones, these sink, trust me, they disappear fairly quickly. Yeah, giving you a choice of two different materials. The soft version is, it kind of feels floppy when you're really shifting, but you do shift through the water. The HD version, a little bit stiffer, so you're using a little bit more energy, but you're going that much faster. Horses for courses. If you want sort of a simple tough pair of fins, then yeah, go for the HD version. If you want a bit more of a sort of chilled out dive, just go for the standard version. At the moment they're exactly the same price, so it's not worth, there's no great difference. As far as RRP, these have an RRP of 118 British pounds, so they're a little bit cheaper than the F1s, so that's worth looking at. These are also bolted in place, but you don't have an adjustment, so you can't tighten that strap, so that's worth looking at. That is quite a strong sort of fitting, so you've got two little, you've got a nut and a bolt to hold those in position on both sides, so they're quite sort of robust. Other than that, very similar features. As far as performance, I'd probably put them on a level pegging as far as like thrust. Probably give a slight edge to the F1s because they're that little bit bigger. They're really kind of pushing that water through. But for most dives, and I don't need to sort of shift to get anywhere too quick, I just stick with the RK3s. Okay, so to bring this all together, we have two very similar pair of fins, similar style, similar length. The weight is sort of drastically gone to one side, so the Hollis F1s, they're about twice as heavy at least compared to the RK3. They're about the same length, it's just different materials. As far as performance, it's slightly moving towards the F1. You've got a bit more customization in that adjustable heel strap. The bigger paddle is a bit more effective at moving you through the water. As far as aesthetics, I kind of prefer the RK3, that's a personal thing. I just like the that sort of retro style. These are very much the original kind of style of vented fins that came out back in like the 50s and 60s. As an overall kind of winner, I'm going to lean towards the RK3. I used to use the F1s. They're a big, tough pair of fins. Traveling with them, not so easy because they do take up a lot of your baggage allowance. With the RK3s, I'm happy using these at home with my dry suit, and then I can travel with them abroad quite easily and then use them around the world. So my overall winner is going to be the RK3. And of course, you can choose your favorite color so you can match it. It doesn't have to be matte black that you can only get the F1 in. You can choose bright, vibrant colors. So yeah, my overall winner is the RK3. But of course, this is a democracy. Let us know what your favorite fin is and why in the comments below. Any questions, of course, let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching and safe diving.
We are an online dive store serving the UK and the world for all your diving equipment needs. So why not visit us at simplyscuba.com or click the box on your screen.